Hello everyone and welcome to another Naraka Bladepoint video. This is OSK and today we're going to be taking a look at the different weapons of Naraka Bladepoint, specifically ranking them in a tier list today. Much like my previous character solo tier list, this will be a weapon tier list, both melee and ranged, based on the solo mode predominantly. But it does have some good applications towards duos and squads. You just have to know the context of it, which I will get into later in this video whenever we're actually ranking the weapons. As always, the usual disclaimer whenever you're making anything on the internet, this is 100% my opinion. Your opinion might disagree with mine. If it does, leave it down in the comments and tell me why. And before we get started with the video, just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. I appreciate every single one of you that clicks on this video and also leaves a like and subscribe. It really does mean the most to me. And now let's get into the weapon tier list for Naraka Bladepoint. Hello everyone, welcome to the melee tier list. Before we get started, just want to say another big thank you to the Lazy Sloth down here for creating these tier lists. I believe he made the range tier list that we'll go over right after this one. So again, big thank you to Lazy Sloth. I know he's in the comments somewhere. Thank you very, very much. You make my life so much easier. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the tier list ranking. Starting off, we have the Morris Blessing weapon, the Bloodripper. Now, this one's very interesting. I'm actually going to place it in B for right now. The Bloodripper is easily a game ender. It has purple focus once you get it started, but the fact of the matter is you must get it started. So for a solo tier list like this one, primarily solo, you could translate this to trios and duos if you wanted to a little bit, but for a primarily solo list, basically Bloodrippers are a little bit difficult to get going in the higher elos. So there's a startup period, and during the startup period you don't have any protection. It's all neutral hits until it powers up to the purple focus. And during that window when you're winding up, you can easily get punished for it. So for right now, I'm placing Bloodrippers in B tier. Why is it B and not D? Because if you end up hitting someone with Bloodrippers, there's really no way to escape unless there's a ledge and the person piloting the Bloodripper just isn't paying attention or just doesn't have any way to, get away from that hill or that ledge or anything as far as that goes. That being said, it's a very good weapon if you can get it going. The problem is getting it going. So we'll put it in B for right now. I might rebalance it depending on how the other weapons lie. I haven't gone through this quite yet, but as we go throughout the video, we'll probably be moving some things around. The dagger's up next, and the dagger's going to go solidly in A tier. And the reason for that is it's kind of exploitable if you know how to play against it. Basically, it has its main mechanics, the dagger dash and the blue focus directly out of a dagger dash. Of course, we're not going to be talking about soul jades, but it has very good soul jades. But we're not going to be factoring that into our tier list here today. For the dagger, you really just have to be able to read your opponent and know when to counter, because if you learn how to counter effectively for the dagger, then it's pretty obvious that the dagger can then go into a C or B tier, because I mean it's very exploitable in that way. But the dagger basically is looking for that focus attack combo, the vertical focus attack into a follow-up uppercut into aerial strikes. That's what it's looking for every time. Everything else is a mix-up to try to get to that combo. And that might involve a dagger dash. It might involve, a delayed, I forget what it's called, but, the blue focus attack, horizontal after your dagger dash. All of that is kind of a distraction to get to that combo for the most part. And knowing that your opponent is looking for that from you as a dagger user can be in your benefit to play some mind games, but generally the most damage you're going to get is out of that combo. So as long as you're paying attention, as long as you're learning when to counter and knowing how to read your opponent, then the dagger isn't really going to be S tier. I put it in A tier because it's a good mix-up. Normally, most of these weapons, play kind of the same. They have their neutral hits. They have their neutral hits. They have their wind-up focuses. All of that is pretty standard among all these weapon types. The dagger kind of flips it on its head a little bit with that immediate focus attack from the dagger dash. So it's one of those things where it can really catch someone off guard. So that's why I'm putting it in A. It's a great mix-up tool, and your opponent really has to keep their head on a swivel if they want to be able to beat you as a dagger user. And it's a little bit, I won't say it's very easy. It's moderately easy to mix up your moves with the dagger, but you still have that vulnerability in some areas where your opponent, if they're looking for it, can counter you. So we're going to leave it an A for right now. Dual blades are the newest weapon to enter Naraka Bladepoint. I think they also go in A. Their damage is insane, especially with their focus attacks. It's a little bit more than most of these weapons up here, with the exception of maybe the greatsword, which we'll get into next. The only problem with the dual blades is that whenever you go for the focus attack, that entire animation of you hacking and slashing is counterable. So if your opponent, like for example, let's say a katana. When a katana has their focus attack, you have a flash of hits, and then after that, you're pretty much safe. With the dual blades, if you miss your focus attack, you have that entire hack and slash window that you can be countered in, and this has happened to me multiple times, and I've seen it happen to multiple people. I've done it to people as well. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's like pick your poison. You get more damage, but you're also more vulnerable. Not really a glass cannon because the defenses aren't weaker or anything like that. It's more like you better hit your shot or you're going to get punished really hard. It's one of those things. Now it does have the benefit of being able to run at breakneck pace whenever you're charging up your horizontal focus attack, which is a plus for it. And it does have a pretty good combo as well, one that I'm aware of at least. So I think that its damage is pretty good, keeps it out of B, but I think that vulnerability with the focus attacks, if you can get around focus attacks against a dual blade user, you should be able to follow up and counter them pretty easily. So we're going to leave it in A for right now. I would say that dagger and dual blades probably at a similar level, if anything, probably dual blades above the dagger because the combo game's just a little bit better. But other than that, I think it's solidly an A. Now, greatsword, I'm going to put bottom of A over here. Greatsword, of course, as many of you know, has insane damage. You know, big sword, big damage, go figure. Especially with some of his focus attacks. The main thing that greatsword has that many other weapons don't is stone form, and that's the ability for you to be charging up a move, whether neutral or focus, and you're able to block your opponent's neutral and I believe some focus attacks. I don't really play it all that much, but I do believe you can block some focus attacks if you're charging up focus. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but the main benefit is blocking those neutral hits. So with stone form, it can be really good if the timing is correct. Like if you're able to get an immediate focus attack out of your stone form, then the damage can be quite good. Also, the damage just in general is really good. If you can land a hit on your opponent, they're going to be feeling it really hard. The only issue is getting the hits on them because it is a little bit slow, and also stone form can be a little bit exploitable if you let it linger for a little bit too long. There will be many times where a good player, will go up to you, stone form you, and then back away, do a little backdash, and then counter your counter attack. So you got to be careful with that. Movement on greatsword is actually pretty good. It has a movement technique where you can slide, jump in the air, swing a horizontal, and it'll actually cover quite a lot of distance, especially up hills as well. One of the better movement options in the game, probably, from a weapon. So it has that going for it, but the exploitable nature of stone form, I think, especially at a higher level, keeps it from being anywhere near S. And I think, honestly, if it was B+, if there was B+ option, I'd probably put it in B+, but we're going to keep it bottom of A. I think it's a good mix-up tool, especially if you want to run it in your second slot. You can definitely catch people off guard by running the greatsword, and there's plenty of combos off of some of these other weapons where you can swap in a greatsword and get just that little bit of extra damage for a kill. But I think by itself, it does a few good things well. I think that you know, it's got its gimmicks, but I don't think that it's enough to propel it to S tier. So we're gonna keep it an A. Now Katana is the ultimate, you know, flashy, high elo, I want to style on my opponent weapon, and the reason for that is that it has really good neutral and exceptionally good advantage, especially with the higher elos. People who have put the time and the effort into learning how to use the katana, especially with uppercut combos, they are some of the most vicious players in the game, and they can end your life if you're at 3/4 health. And I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. It's happened in tournaments. It's one of those things where, you know, if you're up against a really good katana player, you better be careful, okay? Because this weapon can do a ton of damage. One of the main katana combos that are out right now is you have a horizontal into a crouch into a crouch canceled crouch, horizontal, into a slide uppercut, and potentially into another slide uppercut. You have your full horizontal, you have your first 2 hits of your horizontal 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, and then you have a fully charged or a first charged horizontal attack. And that does a crap ton of damage, okay? So do it with me. Horizontal, horizontal, uppercut, sometimes another uppercut, into horizontal, horizontal, and then focus horizontal. It's actually kind of nuts. There's also grapple combos off of the katana. It has some of the best movement in the game as well with air walking that we'll get into in a later video. And overall, it's just a really quick, really advantageous weapon. If you can get a horizontal hit and a horizontal hit stun onto your opponent with a katana, you should be able to win that fight for the most part. Or at the very least, you'll be giving yourself a really good advantage if you've practiced the combos. So because of the combo potential, because of the relatively fast nature of its neutral, I'm going to go ahead and leave katana in S tier. Definitely one of the more feared weapons out there. Now, longsword, I'm going to put a B tier. It does have a solid combo, that being the toothpick, where you can hit a vertical, dash out, hit another vertical, immediately into an uppercut, and then you aerial horizontal, and then another jump into an aerial horizontal. It's a pretty reliable combo. It's been nerfed in recent days, but you know, I'm still able to do it a lot against a lot of different people, especially if you cancel a focus. If you cancel focus armor into it, that is holding down as if you're going for a focus attack, so you get the super armor and then letting it go early so it does the neutral attack. You're able to land this pretty consistently. There's also another combo where you do the same first sequence where you do vertical, uppercut into a, I believe it's a vertical, horizontal, and then the third hit of the 1, 2, 3. So it has a lot of damage in that way. The only issue with it is that its focus attack is pretty bad. Especially, even though it's ranged, it's pretty exploitable, kind of like dual blades, but to a, it's at a higher extent. The damage potential from the combos of the longsword aren't as good as the dual blades, and also the damage that you get from the focus attacks from the dual blades aren't as good, or that you get from longsword in comparison to the dual blades aren't as good. So overall, it's kind of like dual blades, except you get lower damage and they're just as exploitable. So for that reason, they're going to be a tier lower. They're going to be probably about the same level as the Bloodrippers. The Bloodripper is such a unique example that it's hard to compare it to any other weapon, but I think it's solidly in about B tier. Longsword should go right along with it. It just has lower damage than the dual blades, and dual blades kind of does what the longsword does, but better. Now, the nunchucks actually kind of surprised me. From watching tournament play and also in my own games and using it in my own games, Biting Fury, which is the unique gimmick that nunchucks has, is still every bit as powerful as it's ever been. The combo potential isn't really there. You still have your basic uppercut, one hit of horizontal, and you can crash down with a vertical if you want to off of that. I find it to be a little bit less consistent than just going into your focus and trying to land another uppercut or some kind of focus attack. But Biting Fury really separates this out from a lot of the other weapons. The way you gather Biting Fury, by the way, is you get damage or you can land counterattacks and that sort of thing. And it allows you to do what's called a Dragon's Flurry, which is holding your vertical focus attack to its second charge and then letting loose. You'll be able to go into gold focus and then just start wailing on people if you want to. That's if they don't counter you, of course, but you can also move while you're doing it and catch people in the middle of that combo if you keep pressing your vertical attack. So that in and of itself is a pretty free way to get some damage. Also, if you're holding your left focus attack, your horizontal focus attack, then if you have some Biting Fury, you're able to deflect hits, which is very useful if you're going against someone who maybe is going for a focus attack, but you know, maybe beat you to the punch or something. You have that get out of jail free card. So for that reason, it kind of flips a lot of concepts on its head to some extent. There's a lot of advantages you can get from running nunchucks that you can't get from any other weapon. It's a pretty safe weapon as well. So that's why I'm going to put it in S tier. I would say a little bit above Katana, because with Katana, there is kind of a skill floor to it. If you're going to be using Katana, you have to have put in the time. You have to have the combos memorized, whereas with nunchucks, it's a little bit less skill intensive. You can kind of just pay attention to your biting fury, and as long as you have your fundamentals down, you should be good to go. So that's why I'm going to put it above katanas in S tier. Now for spears, it's going to go in B tier, but it's going to go a little bit above the longsword and the Bloodripper. And the reason for that is the Dragon Slayer. It's where you can charge either your vertical or your horizontal to the second stage, and if you time it just right, you'll do a stab and then go into a Dragon's Flurry or into a Nasod's Might, I think it's called, where you twirl your spear around into gold focus. That's pretty useful. You know, it's what you're trying to land with all of your focus attacks. The spear also has a range advantage for the most part. And there is a semi-common, it's a stringable, let's call it stringable because it's not true, but there's a stringable crouch cancel you can do with the spear if your opponent doesn't really know what to do against it. And also the timings for the 1, 2, 3 combos are a little bit later than other weapons, so if your opponent's not really keeping up with you, then you can hit a 1, 2, 3 vertical. It takes a little bit longer for the vertical to come over the top than normal. So if they counter immediately, then they're going to miss their counter and get hit by the blue focus anyway. So that's a pretty good advantage with it as well. It also has a decent uppercut combo into aerial strings, which is all right. But overall, even though it has the Dragon Slayer and that going for it and the timing differentials, it doesn't really do as much damage as any of these other weapons do. The damage potential isn't really as good. And overall, if you have solid fundamentals, you shouldn't really be worried about a spear user too much. You're more worried about katanas and nunchucks and to some extent great swords as well, because they're a little bit different. You're not really worried about a spear user if you have solid fundamentals. So that's why, at least at the higher elos for solos, I will put spears in B tier. Let me make sure that there's no adjustments for this final tier list. Bloodripper could theoretically go in C, but because of its game-ending potential, I think I'm going to put it in B. Great sword should be below dagger. Dual blades, arguably daggers could go above dual blades. I think the damage from dual blades kind of puts it just a little bit ahead of dagger, but it's really anyone's guess. Nunchuck's definitely the best weapon in the game right now. Katana, if you go up against a really good katana user, you'll see what I mean, especially when you get to gold elo or so. You'll start getting matched against some of these solar players, and they can really dish out some katana combos, let me tell you. Longsword, you know what, I kind of want to put longsword just above the spear, because the longsword has that very reliable combo that you can pretty much hit every time. The only issue is its focus attacks are very bad. So it kind of eliminates part of the engagement that you don't want to be part of. So I think it's going to be my final tier list. So there you go. We got nunchucks and katana in S tier. You got dual blades, dagger, and greatsword all in A tier. And then you have in B tier longsword, the spear, and then the poor Bloodripper. Never gets any love from me, just like Kurumi. And, you know, it's just one of those things where if you get them before the startup, they'll never be a problem. If you're in a squad game or a duo game where there's some distraction going on, then there'll probably be a little bit of a problem. Even then, there's some ways to escape from it, especially if your opponent messes up. So not really that great. It's pretty average. So I think B tier is a pretty good spot. So that's going to do it for the melee tier list. All right, welcome to the ranged weapon tier list. Of course, you can see them all down there below. Before we get started on ranking these bad boys, just want to say thanks for watching up to this point and continuing to watch. We're going to go over some strengths, weaknesses, and also big thank you to Lazy Sloth. Once again, my man is coming in clutch. I swear he had these built out before I even started making these videos, so I really appreciate his contribution to the community here by putting the templates up on Tier Maker. So thank you very much, Lazy Sloth. Once again, I know you're in the comments somewhere. Thanks once again for making these templates. You're the best. All right, now we're going to go ahead and get started with the bow. The bow, easily best weapon in the game right now. And the reason for that is that it has quick damage if you manage to land your shots in between your dashes. You can fire a shot, dash out, fire another shot. And the main ticket for it to be in S tier is that if you hit a headshot, then you get a free stun out of it, which is pretty nice. 8 shots should be pretty, I believe it's 8 shots, might be 10. So should be, well, actually, the damage potential that you can get from the bow should be enough to actually, you know, just flat out eliminate an opponent. So the trick is landing it and keeping the distance. but most of the time you're in melee range within about 3 shots or so. Usually it's about 2 or 3. So it's also really good to place or to try to hit a bow shot after certain combos. Like if there's a knockaway combo that you have, usually there's just enough time to land a bow shot to get that little bit of extra damage, sometimes for a kill. Same thing with the musket that we'll get to here in a second, but the bow, because of that headshot stun, I think it outperforms just about any other weapon on this tier list, so we're going to put it in S, and I don't think anything's going to touch it really. The cannon, obviously better in duos and squads. In solos, it's not really all that good. It does have the benefit of being able to be chained after those knockaway combos like we just went over for the bow. The only issue is the range, and really just there's a lot of time in between firing the cannon and your opponent being able to move. So there's a good chance that even though your aim might be alright, your opponent can just, see it coming and then move out of the way, making you have no damage. Not as much the case with some of these faster weapons like the bow and the musket. So for that reason, I'm going to put the cannon in B for right now. Might move it around, but I think B is a solid, I think it's a solid place for right now. The Flamebringer, I believe it's called. This thing is actually pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as the bow, but the fact that you can burn your opponent's health, and I mean health, even though they have shields, there still does health damage because it's a burn. You can just tag someone with this and then continue to go into melee range, and they have that damage over time debuff taken away at them. That's a very good, it's very good for that reason. You're also able to you're able to continuously fire it and kind of spray it in a way among multiple enemies if you're third partying, which is also really good. The only reason I would put it below bow is the damage potential of bow in a single target scenario, which happens more often than the third parties usually. But don't underestimate a Flamebringer, because this thing can do a lot of damage that will sneak up on you in a hurry. So if you see someone with the Flamebringer, either run away or collapse on them like immediately, because this thing can do some damage, especially at the gold rarity. You can also find it in purple from Morris Blessing, but if you're up against the gold variant, you're going to be in some trouble. The musket, I'm going to put just above the Flamebringer, right here in A tier. And the reason for that is because it's basically a bow without the stun. And that's really about it. It does some really good damage, especially on headshots, but it doesn't actually stun you. So it's a pretty simple explanation. I believe that the projectile speed's very similar as well. Yeah, it's just lacking the stun, brings it down a tier, A tier. Not really much else to go with. You can use it to end combo strings like with the cannon and bow. If you knock them away, there's a little bit of window of time where you can switch weapons, hit them with a little musket shot. It's pretty good. Overall, if I see a bow in my games, I will definitely take it over musket, but don't think that musket is weak by any chance, because it can do some damage in much the same way that a bow can as well. Pistol is about in the same boat. It is missing the stun that the bow has. The damage is pretty similar. The only difference is that the pistol can be charged up whenever you're going for a third party, which does a lot of damage. You can take out like 500 damage pretty easily, sometimes more. So it has that going for it. It also has a really quick single fire mode that you can do your dashes with, along with all these other weapons here. The only reason that I would put it below musket is because that quick damage, which is what you're going to be using most of the time, the quick damage isn't as good as the bow or the musket. It's still really good. You could definitely interchange these two if you wanted to in your games. I still think bows outranks it because of the stun. Just don't underestimate a pistol user, because it's very similar to what the musket does. The repeating crossbow is really bad. I wouldn't recommend you take it. It can be blocked by melee attacks, as with really all these weapons. It can be blocked by melee attacks, but the repeating crossbow, there's really no burst damage out of there, and burst is really important in Naraka Bladepoint. You can use this to kind of seal out a kill if you really wanted to, but most of the time you're going to be wanting to take something like the bow, the musket, the pistol over a repeating crossbow. I don't think it's really that good. Even though, like me myself, I'm a little bit biased towards the repeating crossbow because I have a lot better tracking aim than I do first hit accuracy. So I actually like running the repeating crossbow in some scenarios, but objectively speaking, it's not as good as any of the other options above it. I would say it's in C tier, and I think that's where it belongs. If I wanted to meme it a little bit, I could put it in D with nothing in C. Spoilers for Swarm. But I think putting it at C is fair. It can still do quite a few things, but the damage potential just is nowhere near what you would see with the bow, musket, and pistol. Also, this thing runs out of ammo pretty quickly, so it has that going for it as well. So we'll put it in C, and I don't think I'm going to be moving it from there. Now the Swarm, I'm going to put top of A here. The only reason is because this thing can be charged up and fired upon your enemies in a continuous spray of these little fire darts. It has better damage potential than any of these when fully charged up. And the only difference, or the only problem, is that there's really no way to quickly use this weapon as good as you can with the bow, or for the musket or pistol for that matter. I think that these other weapons have a much better burst potential than the Swarm does. Now, if you're able to stay away, get a third-party charge up going, and able to rain down fire onto your opponents, the Swarm easily outpaces damage from any of these other weapons. But that being said, you're kind of exposed while it's going off. You have to stand there and continuously hold your Swarm while it's darting. So you're kind of a sitting duck in that matter. There's a trade-off there. So for that reason, I'm going to keep it out of S tier. I'm going to keep the bow in S tier. And really, I think that this is a pretty accurate tier list. If I had to gripe just a little bit, I would probably move cannon to C. I don't know if I'd move anything down to B, honestly, because these four are just a step below bow, and I think that that's for a really good reason. Really, the cannon I think is just a little bit better than the repeating crossbow because of its combo finish potential, and that's really the only reason. So yeah, I think this is pretty accurate. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, as always, of course, and we'll go from there. So thanks for watching those two weapon tier lists, and continue for the outro because I have an announcement. And that's going to do it for the 2 weapon tier lists. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. And thank you so much for listening to my ramblings about the different strengths and weaknesses of the different weapons that we can find in Naraka Bladepoint. Quick reminder that this is predominantly for solos, but you can also apply some of the concepts to duos and squads and make your own conclusions about those tier lists as well. If you disagree with me at all in the ranking of these tier lists, please let me know down in the comments. It does pretty well for the YouTube algorithm, and also it helps create that discussion that was really the main goal of making these videos. So please leave your discussions down in the comments and let me know why you think something is right or wrong. Another huge thank you to the Lazy Sloth. He'll probably be found in the comments section just like the last video. Very big thank you to him. He does a really good job cutting out these images, and it really saves me a lot of time whenever I'm making this sort of stuff. So big thank you to Lazy Sloth once again. And of course, another big thank you to everybody who clicks on this video and watches my content. It really does mean the most to me. Last video I mentioned that we were getting real close to hitting 7,000 subs, and we literally hit it like hours after I released that video. So thank you so much for all your continued support. It really does mean the most to me. Like I said towards the end there, a quick little announcement for you. I will be out of town for about a week and a half. Today, the recording of this video is Friday, and the video should be going up on Sunday. If I get the day wrong, I'm sorry, but today is Friday, and I have a flight today. So I will be gone for about a week and a half until a little bit later than mid-July. I don't think I have any other videos planned to come out until I get back, so I apologize for that. I meant to make a little bit more, and I was in the middle of making 2 more, but in hindsight, I figured, it's probably better to spend a little bit more time making the videos than send out something mediocre. So with that being said, the 2 videos I'm making, it's another gameplay video and also a movement guide that I know that a lot of you people have been asking for. I have a nice little collab for that video, so stay tuned. We're going to have some really advanced tips for you guys, probably much more advanced than you'll find anywhere else on YouTube. So look forward to that a little bit later this month. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. But yeah, no videos for about maybe another week or so, maybe a little bit longer. Apologize for the inconvenience there, but now you know up front. Of course, you can always reach me by joining the Discord down below in the description and following me on Twitter. I'll still be very active there. I'll just be away from my computer. So again, won't be able to make any videos as far as that goes. Maybe you'll see the odd short or something if some news comes out and I have a reaction to it or something. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be posting on it. I have a wedding to go to, so who knows. But if I have anything, I guess you'll see it on the channel. But thank you guys so much for your continued support. It really does mean a lot to me, and I really mean that when I say that. Like, hitting 7,000 subs on our way to 10K, which is like the ultimate goal before the end of this year. It really it means so much because, you know, it's one of those, it's a milestone, you know, it's one of those things where we're kind of blowing through it pretty quickly, and it's really just amazing how much love I'm getting from my return to Naraka. And you know, it's not something that I ever envisioned myself to do, or that I could do, but you know, you guys are making it possible. So thank you guys so much. With your continued support, I will continue to make these videos. So thank you, thank you, thank you again. If you like the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe and do all that sort of stuff. If you'd like, you can join the channel as a member right next to the subscribe button. It's a small fee every month if you like to support me that way. We still have Gabriel holding down the fort here. At the time of making this video on Friday, if any more have joined, I'm sorry if I missed your name, but it'll be covered in the next video whenever I get back. So thank you guys so much, every one of you that support me. I've been OSK. Y'all have a great day, a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.